got a panel discussion with Derrick Kunz, who is running for mayor of Rockford, Illinois, as an independent. Today, I think we're going to talk about some education. We're going to talk about crime. We're going to talk about the potholes, what he would have done differently as mayor during COVID. Let's get into it with our panel. So, Derrick, I want to thank you so much for facing off with our panelists here. We have Elizabeth Han, Colby Campbell, Fernando Perez, and we all have some questions about crime, education, the handling of COVID, and we'll probably have some good back and forth here. So please just tell us, why in the world would you want to run for mayor of Rockford?
Well, I can tell you, and thank you for having me. I do appreciate everybody being on. I wasn't planning on running. The biggest thing that I wanted to run for, and I decided to run in October, is that I just see the future of our city, and I see the decline in our children's education. I see the high crime rates, and I also see the high taxes that we're paying. And I'm just kind of fed up with the narrative that everything is happy-go-lucky. And I personally don't believe anybody should run alone. I believe everybody should be able to hear a different voice in Rockford. And Tom McNamara ran unopposed in 2021. And in 2025, he's not running alone. I'm right here with him. And you know what? I think that people need to hear it. I think he's been there 8 years. And I think 8 years is way too long for somebody to be in office. We have a lot of work that we need to do at the city. And if we don't change the trajectory of our city, I'm really fearful of where that's going to go in the near future.
You talk about that narrative. That narrative is pretty strong because he's pretty, established here, especially with his father's name and this whole thing in Rockford. I mean, you're from Rockford. You've been
Born
here
and raised. Yep.
your
Born
whole
and
life.
raised in Rockford.
So you've been around in that McNamara name. It's pretty popular out there, and that narrative's pretty strong, especially the media helping him out. What do you think is some of the issues that he's saying one thing, but the sentiment you're hearing on the street is a little bit different?
Right. Well, I think the one that he's polishing off now is the crime, where violent crime is down, and that is a concern of mine, because what is the definition of violent crime? I think everybody has a different definition of violent crime. But the other thing is that we don't talk about is that we're down 32 officers. He was actually in a meeting in the 8th Ward that I went to listen to him. And he's like, yes, where violent crime is down and this is down. But when you're down 32 officers, are you able to patrol the streets or get to the calls when you need to? And in an interview that I did for WIFR just the other day, his response to that was, I'm naive. And I'm like, well, if I'm naive, you're saying that, does that mean that we don't need all those 32 extra officers, and then we're just going to tell the police union that, hey, we don't need these officers anymore and the crime is not there? When I go on the streets and I'm talking, by the way, I had to get 800, well, technically 600 signatures. I could turn in 800. I got 1,200. And when I'm talking to the people, the 1,200 people in 40 days, they don't feel safe at all right now. So that's a big issue that I have, is that what is violent crime? Who's actually putting out the numbers? Is it self-reported numbers? I was a director of sales for AT&T/Cricket Wireless for 4 states. Well, yeah, if I self-reported all my numbers, I would look great on paper all the time. So, you're always going to have ebbs and flows. All right. 100%. You're always going to have different flows that are going to go up and down. And I get that part of it. And maybe the crime is down a little bit, but I don't believe it's down 32%. I think it's the way you, how would I say, rate the crime, right? What's the definition of violent crime?
Right. And everybody I talk to, they're talking about where they're not going anymore, the parts of town that and even in it, you'd be very surprised. Places we used to go growing up. Oh yeah, we don't go to that mall anymore. Oh, we don't go to that area anymore. So is crime down because we're not going where we used to go and fear is winning, or is it because of it's actually safer out there?
Right. Well, you can't even go on the bike path anymore unless, you have a 75-year-old lady that was allegedly raped and by someone who possibly was not supposed to be here. And again, I don't care if how would I say this? I don't care if you're here or not supposed to be here illegally or not illegally. We got to clean that up. We want the
Yeah.
rapists, the drug dealers, the murderers. We want those off the streets.
Yeah.
And that is just plain and simple that we need to get those. And you can't do that unless you have a full police force.
Yes. Well, we're going to dig into crime in just a little bit. I know, Elizabeth, you're going to have to go here in a little bit. You want to go first. Elizabeth, you had a question for Derrick about education, if I remember correctly.
Sure. Yeah. I am an instructional coach in Rockford Public Schools in a West Side school at McIntosh Elementary. McIntosh is one of the lowest 5% performing schools in the state of Illinois. We struggle with mobility, but we also struggle mainly with attendance. Getting our students to come to school consistently has been a huge challenge for us. The district has recognized that, so much so that they have hired, for every building has an attendance specialist this year
Okay.
that is trying to focus on attendance. We're doing attendance incentives. We're doing what I feel like everything the district has control over doing. But it's not just a district problem, it's a community problem. And so what I would like to know is, if you were elected mayor, what would you want the city to do, or how could the city partner with the school district and many of our community partners to help with this very big issue of attendance in our schools?
Right. Well, thank you for the question, Elizabeth, and thank you for teaching our kids. And we really do appreciate it. Listen, our kids are our number one future, and we have to get them to school. So I think for the last 8 years, we've had a mayor that has kind of put it on the sidelines. And what I will do as mayor is I will sit up kind of like the bully pulpit and say, hey, these are the issues. And you're right. It is a community problem. I believe that we should get first of all, how would I say this? We have to get our kids to school. So the number one thing is, there's no reason why in Rockford, Illinois, we should be, as a community, we should be able to talk to our faith-based organizations, our non-for-profit organizations, to go get those kids at school. I know that my wife is an educator as well. I know that the principal goes and grabs those kids at school because they can't get there. I'm glad that they're trying to do that. But we have enough resources and enough non-for-profit organizations that we need to get those kids and get them to school. And you know what? The problem comes, how would I say this? When I say it's a community problem, remember, it starts at home first, right? It starts at home first. So we got to get the parents to make sure we get our kids to school and we get them on time. But if they need assistance, we are going to get them assistance to get to school 100% of the time. There should be, right now, Elizabeth, what's the, from what I understand, the truancy rate's about 65%, correct? Well, at the end of my administration, I think, day one, after 1 year, we should get it down to 55%, then 45%, then 35%. The schools need to be a refuge for our children and for our families. And I think we have multiple opportunities. We have a lot of nonprofit organizations, but why don't we invite those into the schools where you have some after school care? I just was actually talking to some teachers the other day at a meet and greet that I had, and they talked about that as well. The after school care can't just rely on the teachers, because I think the teachers are struggling in the schools 100%. How many kids do you have in the classrooms over there at McIntosh right now?
We're pretty maxed out. Now, I'll be very honest. I was in a building today that is not quite maxed out. But at McIntosh, yeah, we definitely are. And I have to give props to some of the faith-based organizations that have. We have Brother John, who, if you watch any Rockford School Board meetings, he speaks at every school board meeting, and he picks up about 14 kids every day. We have a gal named Mama T, and she picks up a group of kids every day and gets them to the Boys and Girls Club. We have all of these like silos of organizations. What we need is a city and a school district to work together to bring all of that together. We need, because right now it's like playing whack-a-mole with attendance, and we have these great people who are attempting to help us. But if we could coordinate
Mm.
the school district with the city and these faith-based organizations and community partners and all of that, just think how powerful that would be. I mean, the fact Brother John gets 14 kids to school every day and Mama T gets about 6 or 7, that's a lot of kids that are
That
coming to
is.
school every day because of their assistance. Think about if we were able to harness even more groups, and you know, we could triple that number.
Mhm.
And
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 you're
and I
really
and
tough.
I and I just
Go
wanna say, I love the way you framed that question. You framed it as not, "Mayor, what are you gonna do about it?" It's, "How are you gonna partner with the community to solve this problem so we can all work on this together, as all of us need to be engaged in this?" And then your answer, Derek, was, "I'm gonna bring people together." And you said, bringing the faith groups together. Elizabeth, I love that idea of, it's not the mayor solving all the problems. Maybe that's the part of the problem, is expecting somebody else to do it when it's all of us. And maybe, Derek, when you win, you can be a facilitator of that.
Yeah, well, the mayor hasn't said anything about the school district whatsoever.
Mm.
I remember talking to somebody in at the teachers union pack, and when they talked about the mayor, they went to the mayor, and he's like, "Well, what do you want me to do about it? That's a RPS
Mm.
205 problem." Um, I will tell you that that is not the way a real true leader can come together. I think we have a lot of non-for-profit, whether it's faith-based or not, and I believe that I believe that all of them are trying to do well for the community. I don't. I think Elizabeth said they operate in their silos, right?
Mhm.
But if you could merge them together and use the funding, because everybody's trying to get this funding, that funding, the philanthropy that of I was on the board of the Northwest Community Center for a while. And when I was on the board, we used to probably bring in, a lot of money, 6 figures almost, from private donations and different fundraisers we have. Now, it seems like it's just more or less state grants, city grants, federal grants. Well, why is that? Well, that's because Rockford's on a decline from a population standpoint. We're losing 500 people a year, but everybody's trying to grab for all these dollars. But if they could kind of merge together, and we could figure out where we have to go with that. For example, I've been to many city council meetings, and I know you're talking about John. I think it's Brantley, if I'm not mistaken. And I listen to Mayor talk every day. He always has the kids in there, and the kids like, you got to be, you be quiet, you do this, and I love that. You know what? He's there. We're talking 2 people are bringing close to 10 to 15 to 20 kids. Well, I can tell you that my church that I go to, one of them is City First. They have a ton of volunteers. Redeemed Life Church off of West Riverside, they've got 70 volunteers that do a food distribution every single week, and they've got tons of people there. That there is the money there that we can go get. There's, whether it's buying a bus, the city, with all the grant money that they have, I think they gave I think a couple $100,000 to wrap these electrical boxes all around outside to the Arts Council, which is great. Hey, listen, we love art. That's great. That's fantastic. Well, could we have bought 10 vans, 10 passenger vans, and use those volunteers to go get those kids when we want to? Absolutely, we can.
Yeah.
So let's think about having the smart money going to our kids, because again, to have a thriving economy, to get real economic growth, when corporations want to come here, they want to say, hey, what's my child's education look like? I don't care really about the graduation rate, because that's what the state grades our RPS 205 in. Well, hey, how about we have our kids be able to read at their grade level? How about 12% math proficiency, and making sure we get to the kids to school? If we change that, graduation rate's automatically going to go up. That's just a no-brainer,
Right. Right. People focus on the graduation rate. It's like that's a symptom of the problem. That's
Mm-hmm.
right.
Well,
Absolutely.
and I do want to say this as an educator in the schools. Over the past several years, we have made a lot of very positive curricular changes in like we're all around the science of reading. I'm sure that's, kind of a buzz phrase right now. But it's science and there's data to support that instruction is going to help our kids learn how to read, and we've adopted many good things here in the last 2 to 3 years in Rockford Public Schools. There's a lot of great teaching going on.
Mhm.
There's a lot of great things going on, but when a kid only shows up to school 2 out of 5 days a week, to try and help them progress is like, a hamster on a wheel, because every time they come back, you're starting over again. Okay, well, they were here 2 days last week, but they were gone 3. So now we got to start all over again.
Mm.
And that's not going to help us move the needle on these kids. We have the right tools. Finally, it took a lot of years for RPS to really finally find the right curriculum, the right tools, the right research to support what we were doing. We're doing a lot of great things, but we need the kids at school.
Right. You say, Elizabeth, one thing that I've done a lot of research on is that they're finally getting the curriculum right. Well, I think from 2017 to 2023, you guys had a curriculum that was rated one of the worst in the whole nations, but the administration and the school board allowed that to happen. Why is that? Where was the mayor in saying, why is he doing the research on it? That's where I believe that you need to have a mayor that can actually come in and say, hey, what are we doing here? Our kids are not getting educated the right way. And why do we have this curriculum, right? And that should be put focus on, and actually have the people get involved, the parents get involved to make those phone calls to those board members, to make calls to that. Again, I think the teachers are doing a great job with the tools that they have. But again, I also think that some of our classroom sizes are way too large as well, because you have 25 kids, and maybe in some schools that's okay, that's not a problem, but you're going to have some behavioral issues with kids. Well, if that behavioral issue is with that child, that disrupts the whole classroom. And again, it's a community problem. First starts at home, then it starts with the administration, then it starts with the board, then it starts with the teachers as well. And together we can do that. And getting those kids to school and changing our school system. That's my one of my primary focuses that we have, because they're our future. Those are the kids that are coming out of high school that we need to get there. We can kind of go on a little bit, but with grade Z, I'm not sure if anybody knows what that is. No one knows. When I go out, people don't know what grade Z is, which I was shocked what it is. And if you guys don't know what it is in middle school and high school, that if somebody does okay or poorly on a test or doesn't show up for class, they give them a grade Z. And a grade Z means it gives 50%. So the kids have figured out, right? Kids are smart, right? With whatever they can do not to do their work or not do this, they get a grade Z, so they get 50%. Well, that means they don't have to really do a little bit more work to just pass the class. And we're not holding these kids accountable. So we're just passing them along. And then what happens is that come 12th grade, they can't graduate, or they have to drop out and they have to go into a different program after that. Well, first of all, we have to hold ourselves to a higher standard as a community, right? And we have to hold our kids at a higher standard as they graduate high school and go through that. The grade Z is only in middle school and high school. It doesn't happen in a grade school. So I say get rid of the grade Z. Well, actually, they have they kind of got rid of grade Z, but they have a new thing called grade M now. Grade M. Now, what grade M is that if you don't do your best, you get a 0. Well, what constitutes a grade 0 or a grade M? Because if the kid said, hey, I did a really good job and I got a 20%, did you really give it your best effort? And and that's up to interpretation. Whether the teacher's going to do it, they'll probably give them a grade M. I don't know that, but there has to be an accountability that our teachers can hold our kids to a higher standard to, and we as adults, as leaders, need to hold our kids to a higher standard. The other thing is attendance, right? Attendance. I think good attendance is 17 days. Am I correct in saying that, Elizabeth, or no?
We want them to have less than 18 days. Yeah.
17 days. In the month of February, that's a whole month of school. No, raise the standard. I know one school, the principal has raised it to 9 days. Hey, our standards are higher. Let's raise it. It's 9 days. Okay. I remember when I was a kid, I went to Christian Life School. I was actually back in the day when if you got in trouble, they'd paddle you back in the day. I'm not for that at all. But what I'm going to say is I think it was like 3 days. If we missed school, we'd have a problem, or there was a letter sent home to our family members. So we've definitely lowered the standards for our children, and we definitely did turn that around for sure.
Well,
I was just to say, I missed 2 days of high school.
Oh, wow.
I sprained my ankle, so I had to stay home one day. The other day, I had to do a makeup for a job shadowing thing. We had to do a makeup thing, so I missed that day.
I will tell you about
I just can't believe kids these days. Anyways, go ahead.
The attendance issue too. Like, this is the really weird part. So we have an attendance specialist. We have attendance incentives. We're doing all of these things. And my principal is recording our attendance rate each month. And the more we try and do interventions, the worse our attendance gets. I mean, it's the craziest thing. The goal is 95% attendance, right? That's the goal. And every single month we're losing ground, and we don't know why. And so I think we don't know why because we're just looking at it from a school perspective. We need to involve other people in the discussion to figure out why we're offering bikes and scooter rides around school and gift cards and you name it, and it's going down. So what's the issue there? It's, like I've said, it's a community issue, and we need to look outside of the district to find out why. Why are these incentives not working? Why is having an attendance specialist who calls and does home visits and does all the hard work? Why isn't it working? And I think we need to go outside of the district and get partnerships to figure out the answer to that.
Right. And again, I think the schools should be a community center. I believe that 100%. The school should be a community center for everybody to come in, whether, if we have to do a food drive there, a clothing drive, whatever the situation may be, but it should be a refuge. 100% it should be a community center. And however we do that with those non-for-profit agencies to bring that together, I think you can change that narrative. And it's troubling that you say you're offering gift cards, you're offering this. What is the root problem of that? Do we need to have more? So I think right now, from what I understand, they're trying to cut some of the social work programs out of the schools or remove them. And I may be wrong in saying that, Elizabeth, maybe you can tell me that, but maybe we need to have some more social workers in the program to figure out what those needs of those families are, and again, it's a community issue, but remember, it starts at home. So what can we do?
We're lucky at McIntosh. We have a full-time master's level social worker and a full-time bachelor's level social worker. I think the biggest issue right now is finding social workers, finding qualified people to do the work. And the other issue that the social workers will tell you is that they get moved around a lot. So when you have a social worker that's in a building, spends all year building relationships, rapport with families, gaining trust, all of those things, and then now next year they're at a different school after they've spent on, and now we've got a new social worker who has to build the relationships, do all of that again. And what the social workers are really looking for is consistency in where they're at. And that, I believe, is why we've lost a lot of social workers to other districts, because of their frustration with the system in special ed when it comes to social workers. We are very fortunate to have the two. We're hoping that both of them get to stay, because they've done a lot of work this year on building relationships. And that's part of, hopefully the solution when it comes to gaining trust with families.
Yeah.
Derrick, your thoughts on that?
Are they? Who's moving them? Is the state or the
admin? We had a number of social workers that 2 days before school started finding out that they've been placed in different buildings and moved around and shifted around. So yeah.
Well, again, then the administration, we got a problem there anyways, right? So if they're going to put a curriculum on for so many years, who's running it? Because if you're exactly right, you have to establish that narrative. You have to establish those social workers there, that they build that relationship with those families, and then obviously working with some different non-for-profit organizations as well. And if you have that camaraderie, you'll actually be able to build that up. I'll give you a small example, is that, as a sales rep in my stores with Cricket Wireless, the stores that produce the best all the time, the number one reason why, you know what it was, Elizabeth, is because the sales rep had tenure, that actually were there all the time. So they knew the guy that came in with the hat and says, "Oh, John, hey, what's going on? Good to see you. Hey, how's your cat? How's your dog?" They built a rapport, and I totally understand that. So we got to, I don't understand the why behind it, but I will definitely look into that. And part of as the mayor, is I'll put together a group that will actually go in and find out what's happening in there, of people that can actually report back to me of where what's happening. And if something is not happening the right way, we're going to announce it to the public 100%.
So, Elizabeth, tell me about your support for Derrick. Tell me about your answers here and your support for Derrick.
Well, I think that I think Mayor McNamara is a good person. I think he thinks he's doing a good job. He has been in our building before, and come and read to our kids when I asked him to. He's a very nice person, but being a nice person doesn't always ensure that you are a good leader. And good leaders often have to make tough choices and have to make unpopular decisions. And so what I like about Derrick is he wants to shake some things up. He wants to partner with the school district. He wants to prioritize education in the city, because when we elevate the education of our city, we elevate our city as a whole. And so I really appreciate that education is a top priority for him. Also, as somebody who had a child graduate in 2020, I had a freshman and a senior in 2020, and those two kids, their lives were changed by decisions that were made by people in powerful positions like our current mayor. And I watched how it changed them, how it changed their friends. I watched how it changed schools and education and prioritizing education. And so I'm looking for someone who's going to have, God forbid anything like the pandemic were to ever hit again, I would want somebody in a position who wasn't going to kowtow to our current governor, who basically shut down schools. And we were fortunate in Rockford that we did have some in-person learning. But I just watched the way that COVID was handled in the city of Rockford, and that was not good either. So those are among some of the main reasons why I will be supporting Derrick. And I agree with Derrick. I don't think any politician should run unopposed. And I'm excited that there's somebody the quality of Derrick running against our mayor.
And Elizabeth, I thank you for that. Fernando, I think you were affected by COVID during high school. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah,
And
so
is what Elizabeth was saying, a little bit, what your thoughts are, or
yeah,
let
so
us
my
know.
question was around those lines. Like, I graduated all online. I didn't decide to go in person. I just did all online. I wasn't. I was just thrown into the real world. I didn't know what to expect, what to do. There was no one telling me, "Hey, this is how you sign up for college. This is how you do this. This is how you get a job." No one. How would you handle that differently if you were mayor during that time?
Well, I actually supported McNamara when he first ran, and because he helped me out with my bar Rural on Tap, and I actually donated to his campaign. When COVID happened, I will tell you, when they first said, "Hey," the administration at that time said, "Hey, let's shut down for the 10 days or whatever it was, 8 days." I'm like, "Okay, that's fine. We don't really know what this is all about." But then afterwards, after that was over with, it seemed the state of Illinois just decided to take this power hungry um, control of, you can't do this, you can't do that. And then you're right, McNamara 100% literally just bowed down to him and whatever he wants. I would not do that at all. I think we should have had kids in school. Again, also, I will tell you that I think that's a choice, right? If you did not want to have your child in school, I think that we should have offered a opportunity or an online solution for them, because maybe some parents, excuse me, not parents, but maybe some teachers wanted to do that. I think at one time they had a half day, or they could come like every other day. But I definitely would have not agreed to shut down our schools. And I would have said, hey, if we had the teachers that wanted to come to school and teach their kids and do what they wanted to do, then we could do that. But also they could have taught them online as well. If the teachers wanted to sit online, you could have moved things around during that time. I think it was a scary time for all of us. But again, when you try to shut down businesses, stay this far away, the mask, now hindsight's 2020. It seems like some of those things didn't work, but I definitely think that it hindered it from a mental health perspective, especially for the kids. Like for even my child, she was going into first grade over at Marshall, and I have an educator at home, so that was good. So we kind of held her to the fire. But again, you missed a whole year, and I think if you see in some of the numbers, from kindergarten to first grade, you had a lot of kids that fell way behind because they weren't in school. And then for yourself, you're right. Maybe you didn't have the social worker, or you didn't have to say, hey, what do I have to do next to it? Maybe if you want to go to college, maybe you don't have to go to college, but what's the next steps? Because I think they just kind of left you out to the wolves a little bit. But also, what about like some of the greatest memories I had were in my senior years, right? Whether it was, prom or football games or basketball games, however that situation was. And, they kind of robbed you of that a lot. And again, I think we had the opportunity as Americans to choose what we wanted to. And if you wanted to stay home, stay home. No, but if you want to go out and live your life, then we should have lived our life. And I know Tom, our current mayor, was 100% not for that whatsoever. He literally tried to shut down businesses. And how would I say this? How he did it the polite way was, we may not renew your license, or we're going to
Right.
give you all these fines.
Yes.
And that is
Threatening
right.
businesses.
You're
Yes.
threatening businesses whatsoever. Colby, your experience on that particular end, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah.
And about your story as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Rockford was my first real go at opening a business. I've been involved in the trampoline park industry for a while. So, when we opened Flow here in Rockford, the timing of it couldn't have been worse. We opened January 10th of 2020. And everybody knows, obviously, what we've been talking about here. 2.5 months later, this pandemic comes in, and all there was really we were left with was uncertainty. We had a 9-month stint of closure. We got shut down, and 2 different times during during that 9 months, I tried to reopen. I tried to do the social distancing. I tried to, make people feel comfortable. We got the screens up. We had, tons of staff in there cleaning throughout the day. We wanted to give people that safe feeling. And on both occasions, I was shut down within hours, and I got, threats of fines from the city. We lost $400,000 in rent that we had to allocate and didn't have any real reprieve from. And as some of you guys know, that employee retention credits were based on your 2019 earnings. We didn't have any. We opened 2 months previous. So, for me, my biggest frustration in this whole thing was I didn't really feel like I had an ally in the city. I didn't have an ally with the mayor. To my knowledge, he's never been in the door of my business. I've never met him. I opened a second business here in town, Dirty Dough, and I was told he would be at my ribbon cutting, and he didn't show up for that. And again, Tom may be a nice guy, and as I said, I don't know him personally, so I just feel like from a business perspective, my question to you is, what would you have done differently? And obviously identifying there's some really, really unique things that happened to a lot of businesses in this town. I know, you had businesses and you had, stores you were working on, and, what would you have done differently?
Well, I think I kind of mentioned that a little bit, is that I wouldn't have shut anything down. And hey, if you want to wear a mask, obviously wear the mask, clean up, and I think that's what you can do. How much did you invest in your trampoline park, Colby?
Yeah, so I mean, we put about $2.2 million into Rockford here, and we employed 75 people right out the gate. We had a huge staff, and when we came back, full bore again, we lost 30 or 40 of them. Were just gone, and I couldn't blame them. Some of them would come to me and say, "Hey, Colby, look, like here's what I get to stay home, and here's what I get to come back to work for you. So I love you and I love working here, but what would you do?" And I understood. I get it. Everybody had to make decisions for themselves, but it was a really tough time for us.
Well, yeah, that's a lot of money to invest into. I didn't realize how much trampoline parks cost. So wow. So you just kind of blew my mind there. That's a ton of money, and especially if 2019, yeah. Well, so the city, there was no relief or anything like that.
No relief, no outreach. I had a conversation with an alderman at one point. I can't even remember his name, back in the day, but I had a conversation kind of about what happened to us, and it was kind of just hey, that's what everybody's kind of been dealing with. So there wasn't really even hey, let's have a real conversation and figure out like who's been impacted by this. And, it's been interesting hearing from you guys too. I didn't even think about it in that perspective. I mean, obviously I feel horrible for the kids that, obviously you miss, Derrick, you said it, the high school sports and, all these other events that are, things that shaped me, as I've gotten to kind of where I am now. I mean, I learned, more from, those memories and those conversations, and, obviously getting to go on and, go to college and grow in my career. I look back really fondly on a lot of those times. So yeah, I feel horrible, Fernando, for you. And, obviously the students, what everybody's gone through.
Well, luckily in the Winnebago County area is that we have in Loves Park, we had Greg Jury that actually stood up and actually worked with the Sheriff Gary Caruana, and they actually did not shut down. They kind of broke that rule and that mold, and allowed to have the businesses open if they wanted to be open. And some businesses chose to be closed, and but again, they gave them the choice.
Yes,
they gave them the choice. That is why we are Americans, and that's why we live in a free society. We have a choice.
Land of the free, as they say. Colby, you probably should have named your trampoline place. You should have named it like Home Depot or some chain big box store or something. And then you would have been essential, right?
Yeah, you've been essential.
I think, yeah, Governor Kristi Noem of South Dakota, I think she's like the only truly American governor who never shut down her state. And she said, I remember watching a speech that summer. She said, I read the Constitution and nowhere did it give me the authority to shut down a business, to deem somebody not essential. But, my job as a governor in the government is to collect the resources, collect the data, collect the information, give it to everybody as unvarnished and honest as I can with everybody, and you make the best decisions because we are the land of the free.
Yeah. Colby, when did you open Dirty Dough?
So we opened Dirty Dough October of 23.
23. So, that's kind of weird. I see Thomas McNamara, or Tommy Mac, as I like to call him. I see him doing a lot of grand openings at a lot of businesses downtown, and maybe I'm not seeing it, but it seems like a lot of grand openings, ribbon cuttings, and TV stations cover that. But did you have a TV station? Did you have the alderman there for your grand opening? And I guess the better question is, did you ask for it?
I did ask. I reached out to the chamber as well, and I did get some support there from the chamber, and reached out to my alderman and was told that the mayor was going to be coming, and it just never happened. So again, I understand. He's got a lot going on. You're a busy guy, but when you make a commitment, hey, I'm coming in for your grand opening, and we've got people there, and we had photographers there, and for us it was a really big event. I guess that's my big thing, and a big reason, Derrick, why I'm supporting you is I've gotten to see firsthand you're the kind of guy that when you tell somebody you're going to do something, you do it, you show up for people. And I think that's what we really need and we're missing in Rockford is a mayor that just shows up for people. I'm not saying any business is more important than anybody else's, but I think one of the big things is that's a big moment for somebody. Again,
Yeah.
you open a business and you really want to have the support of the community. And I can tell you from people that come in and from the customer base, I really do feel it. And I can tell we're making a big difference here in this town, and I take a lot of pride in that. But it would be nice to feel that support coming back from again, I think to Elizabeth's point, I think a lot of these issues we're talking about here, the solution is we got to bring people together.
Mhm.
And I think that's something, Derrick, you're a uniter, and I think that's what we need. We need somebody to really bring all these people together and just know you're not alone. We're all kind of fighting these same fights, and things that are affecting you at school are actually affecting me in my business. A lot of these kids are coming into my business, and it's, hey, how are we handling it? And that feeds into the crime conversation. We deal a lot of times with some of these young kids that I can tell they need somebody to teach them right from wrong, and they need to understand that there's consequences to their actions. And I get the feeling that there's a lot of kids in this town that feel like they don't have consequences.
Right.
Mm.
Maybe a hope as well too. What's the future of their life? Well, I would before I get in my next thing, I would tell you that if a cookie place is opening up, I'll be there no matter what. So I like my cookies. So
You need
that's
both.
good. Yeah. But here and the reason I
Yep.
chose to
Elizabeth, you have to go. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah,
Yep.
thank you, Elizabeth. I
Thank
appreciate you. Yes. Thank you. I would tell you that one of the reasons I'm running as an independent is that I don't have any political ideology. Nobody's dangling my carrot strings. I have to do this or I have to do that. No, it's more of a common sense approach. We may not agree on everything, and that's fine. We don't have to agree on everything, but it doesn't mean I don't like you. It doesn't mean that I don't care. But again, no one is dangling my carrot strings, or I'm beholding to this person because they gave me $15 million. Like I said, we've seen where, hey, you can give all the money you want, but people will politicians will turn their back on people all the time. Just look at Tom McNamara with the Barbara Coleman. He voted against that. He voted against the union on that. And now the Barbara Coleman project has a lot of issues over there. But the unions gave him a ton of money over there. And some of the unions are supporting him, but some of the unions are not supporting him, which is that, which doesn't surprise me. They've got a big contract right now for the Barbara Coleman that's held up in a non-union place over in Chicago, and the construction manager, the project doesn't really know what they're going to do with it. Well, if you just made it union to begin with, it would have been over and done with in about 2 seconds, because when you come to a large project like that, they kind of know what they're doing.
Right. Speaking of which, we had a question come in from a Nancy G. She asked about something that affects all of us: infrastructure and potholes. Derrick, you want to address some of that? I mean, I think there's going to be some more information coming out later, but do you want to kind of address that a little bit?
Yeah, we got a map of the street index, and let me just tell you, there's a lot of red on that street where we actually in our public works department where we actually need to probably fix a lot of our streets. Now, I
Yes.
know that I know that they're just going to do a capital improvement project they just approved that's going to happen this year. There's going to be a lot of a lot of street work done, but we've had a ton of money coming in from, ever since Tom has been mayor. Okay, so he's gotten the weed tax, he's got the video game tax. He imposed a 5% utility tax. Says he hasn't imposed any new taxes, but the 5% utility tax that he has. But now we got the casino, and we've got more money coming in than we almost to say what we know what to do with. But I think some of those resources definitely need to be put in a lot of our roads, but also reduce our crime to help the police department out, to get some good recruits, and also, with our taxes, and pay down some of the debt that we have, because it seems like his budget keeps on growing and growing and growing, but he's gotten more money than he'd ever have. Also, people don't talk about this. I was listening to a meeting one day, and he talked to his finance director. I think it was a couple 6-7 months ago. And that person said, "Oh, we've taken in the most taxes than we ever have had it pretty much in the city of Rockford." Well, yes. Also, you also had inflation that's been up 10 to 15%. So that also comes in where they're getting actually some more taxes that are coming into the city. So again, he's kind of, since his 8 years, he has had the golden goose of taxes money that coming in. And the question is, where are we spending all that money? But the roads of where we definitely need to, besides the roads, what about the flooding problems that we have down at the Keith Creek? We need to, Loves Park did a great job. They had the Army Corps of Engineers come in and say, "Hey, we need to build these bigger drain and sewer systems." But you got the places down, on 20 or Rockford Avenue and 20th and St. Charles, or Charles Street, that we need to, get that area cleaned up so it doesn't flood. Or
Right.
over at Rockton Avenue, over there where the old hospital used to be, which it still should be there, but that place flooded because we don't have the right infrastructure there. And it's going to take a lot of money, but we can do it. And under my leadership, we will.
There you go. Colby, Fernando, any additional questions you have for Derrick Kunz, candidate for mayor of Rockford, Illinois?
So yeah, Derek, you talk about citizens leaving Rockford a lot. What will you do to get them to stay? If that makes sense.
Well, I put a video out there. Let me ask you this, Fernando. Why do you think people are leaving?
Crime rates,
How about job
Opportunity.
opportunities?
job
Yeah.
opportunities.
Right? What's your
Yeah.
future look like?
High taxes,
Right. So,
terrible roads.
like I said, in a video that I put out for this broadcast here, is that whenever and I've worked for 2 Fortune 500 companies. I started off as a part-time sales rep, moved up to a full-time, went to a manager, and became a territory manager, and then came to a director of sales over 4 states, had 1,500 employees. Done a lot of work there, worked for a lot of not-for-profit organizations as well. Now I sit on the board of health, on the executive board over there, that was appointed me by Winnebago County. But whenever a large corporation wants to come in to a city, first of all, they look at infrastructure. Is the infrastructure there? Do we have roads, bridges, rail? Do they have high-speed internet? Where are they at? Where are they located? Are they, and we're perfect. We're right there. We're an hour and a half away, or 90 miles away from Milwaukee, 60 miles away from Chicago. We got Madison. We're 15 minutes away from, I-80, which is the major thoroughfare through the whole United States. We're right there. We're a hub, and so they look at that. So we got the infrastructure, but then they say, "Hey, all right, if we build this here, are the employees going to move here? Because who's going to come and work? All right. Well, they also say, hey, what's the base there? Well, they're going to look at the schools and they're saying, hey, look at our proficiency in math. Look at our reading. Well, that's not good. So do you think anybody else from the country wants to move here when you have a school district that is an administration that is not on the upper tier in the United States? No, they're not going to come here. Then you look at crime. Again, we're still 11th or 12th in the nation for crime, whether if it's down or up. Well, do you feel safe on the streets? No,
Right.
You don't feel safe in the streets. That's the question you ask. When I asked the 1,200 people, do you feel safe? Not one person said that they feel safe. It was all about taxes, crime, and our schools. That's
and my other question too is, talking to the law enforcement here as well, at this rate, why would you want to be in law enforcement here in Rockford? If basically it seems like a lot of these people are going to kick the can down the road mentality. And I've talked to some of the officers that have come by Flo, for instance, and, the conversations that they turn into are, hey, Rockford's kind of like your proving ground here. You got to do it for 6 months and then you get to go to a nicer place. It's like, why do we have that reputation that this is just, we're just kind of accepting the status quo that it's Rockford, so you got to expect it.
Right.
I disagree with that big time. And I want to, and Derrick, I know you're in the same boat, and I know I've talked to Gary as well. And I want to give them all the support they need to hire the best people, the most experienced people. I don't think a police officer in Rockford is necessarily, we shouldn't have a bunch of 22, 23-year-old kids fresh out of the academy that are the ones, patrolling some of these areas that, it takes experience. And Derrick, I know you've done a ride along and you know a lot of these things, but we need to have the best people in the correct spots in this town to patrol properly, to make people feel safe, and then to give confidence to people that, hey, why should I live in Rockford? Like you said, it's not just the economy.
Yeah, well, you can't be 32 officers down, so you have to have a full force, right? But you also need a leader. Right, you need a leader that's not going to back down. That says one thing in front of the camera, and then behind the camera, it's a totally different narrative of where he wants to. But back to Fernando's question as well about that. We talked about crime. We talked about crime. We talked about education system, and we talked about taxes. So what you need to do is, if you fix those things, Fernando, okay, if you get the taxes down, okay, that people will be able to it'll be affordable to live here, okay, because we're still second in the nation when it comes to our taxes for accounting for the city. So we're second in the nation there. That a report just came out on that. And then we can work as a community. And again, this is all community, by the way. It's just not one person. It's everybody. Everybody has to chip in and do this, but you need also a strong leader. And if you fix all three of those things, Fernando, then we can actually get true economic growth and have corporations that come here. We have to look at technology. Maybe we look at AI. Maybe, I would love for manufacturing to come back to Rockford. And I think there's an opportunity to. But whenever you have talk to any economist, if you have your number one employment base is government, you are a declining economy. 100%. Go talk to any economist. They'll tell you that. If they're not, they're lying to you, unless you're in Washington, D.C. But look at Washington, D.C. So as of right now. So that's where you have to attract those businesses. But again, I want to let you know that this is not when I become mayor, it's not going to be a 1 year and all of a sudden we fix it. Okay. This is going to be a process, but we can move it on the right direction because we have the resources as of right now to do that. But we can also, and when I say resources, the tax base that we have, but look at the state of Illinois. They're facing a huge deficit right now. And what really deficit means is that they overspent. Well, we have a balanced budget, as Tom likes to say. Well, you've got a balanced budget because you've been 20, 30, $40 million over the course of the last 4 to 8 years, because all the tax revenue that has came in with the casino, the weed tax, the video gaming tax, the 5% tax that you put on the utilities, that alone has hurt a lot of businesses. And we'll have a little bit more on that, but 5%, think about Collins Aerospace. Think about the aerospace industry, that 5% on all your utilities, gas, electric, telephone line, water. That's huge money that is cutting into the bottom line that you have to raise prices. So that's a big issue. So hopefully, Fernando, like I said, I hope I explained that a little bit to you. But again, we need also, with my real estate background as well, and working for 2 Fortune 500 companies, I believe that we'll be able to recruit some businesses here that are actually going to grow. And when I say not service jobs, okay, not the service jobs, but the non-service jobs that are people are making 100 grand, 200 grand a year, 90 to 80, hundreds and hundreds, even thousands of people like Collins Aerospace. Because right now it's RPS 205 with about 2,600 people, give or take. Then it goes Collins Aerospace, there's about 2,000. Then you got the city of Rockford government, which is right around 13 to 1,400 people. Those are the top 2 of your 3 employment base, which is not a growing economy.
Wow.
So you got to change that narrative.
Wow. Guys, any more questions you have for Derrick?
I guess
Appreciate. Oh, go ahead.
One quick closing question. Just so I guess for me, anybody that right now, I guess you would consider when you're out talking and they're on the fence, they don't know what to do. They feel like, hey, I've lived in Rockford for a long time. I guess things are okay. Why do we need a change? Why would you ask people to vote for you for mayor? This would be my closing question.
That's a great question. I think I bring a different perspective to Rockford. I think it's time to actually have real, true economic growth, but to actually talk about the real issues that are happening in Rockford with our crime, with our taxes, with our school system. Because it seems like right now everything seems hunky-dory, but I know it's maybe not the right professional word. Again, I'm not a politician. I'm just a father. I'm a businessman who loves Rockford, and I want to see it thrive. And as we move forward to our future, if we keep on going down this road, what's going to happen is that our taxes are going to keep going up and up and up, because by Tom McNamara said himself, by 2037, 2040, all of our city of Rockford portion taxes will go to our legacy cost, which is our pension. And that is not going to be good for anybody. And if we hit a recession, watch out. Mm-hmm. It's not going to be good, because the casino probably won't be bringing in that much money if we're hitting a recession.
And higher taxes for the fewer and fewer people that remain.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Wow. Colby, Fernando, thank you guys so much for joining me today and asking the questions. Derrick, any final comments? How do people get in touch with you, and how can people help?
Yeah. So you can actually go to KunzForMayor.com. We also are on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at Kunz for Mayor. Go there. If you have a question, you can go to my website or go to my Facebook page or any of my social media pages. Ask me a question. I'd love to meet whoever it is, whether you agree with me or not agree with me. That's it. But listen to me. Have a different perspective. There are the people that are just going to be for McNamara. Okay, that's fine. Not a problem. If you're on the fence or if you voted for McNamara, hear a different voice. And if you don't like what I have to say, that's okay. Hey, we can shake hands. We all live in Rockford. We all love Rockford. All right. I just have a different perspective. But listen, have a different choice, have a different outlook, and be open-minded. So, Jason, I appreciate you and Colby and Fernando, and I know Elizabeth had to go, but I thank you for having me, and look forward to do some more of these.
You bet. And that last point you made, I think, is so important, because I don't think enough people get the full picture. They don't get the full you on the media from the little sound bites, because I think that the mayor has a great relationship with the media now, and this outsider guy coming in here and shaking things up, they're not going to. People need to do their homework. They need to come meet you on your KunzForMayor.com. I assume you have events where you're going to be next time. I encourage people to go meet Derrick, shake his hand, look him in the eye, tell him exactly how you feel about these issues, and hear what he has to say.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yep. God bless you guys. Thank you. Sponsored by Hidden History Laboratories, uncovering hidden truths that shaped nations. Learn more at hiddenhistorylabs.com.